Guten Tag. Hopefully you've seen 2 lessons on the secret of the German language. This is lesson 3 today, and we're going to get even more advanced here. So let's give it a try. We're going to start looking at this next case, the dative case, okay, which is mostly about indirect objects. It is more than that, but mostly indirect objects, and we'll get to that in a bit, okay. So what is an indirect object? I don't say it's an object that's not direct. That doesn't work for me, okay. So my simple definition is an indirect object receives the direct object, okay. The indirect object is almost always a person, or maybe an animal or something, but something that can actually receive this direct object. Again, not always a person or an animal, but I'd say 9 times out of 10, the indirect object is a person or maybe an animal, all right? So, here's a sample in English. We have the student gives the teacher an apple, okay? We know that student's the subject, we got the easy part. Student's the subject, got it, go. Okay, so the apple is what's being given, it's what's being verbed, so the apple is the direct object. So then, who is receiving the direct object, okay, that's the teacher. The teacher's receiving the apple, the teacher's receiving the direct object, which makes the teacher the indirect object. So, if we have the teacher, that teacher in that particular sentence is going to have to go down here on the dative portion of the chart here, okay? So, I call this row Mr. Man, I call this Risi, Nisi, and this is Mr. Man. So, Mr. Man is the row for the indirect objects. And otherwise, it works pretty much the same way we've been doing. We have the last letters, and they just go on those words like we've been doing with all those der words, okay? So, let's try to identify the gender of each noun and figure out the function. By the way, many of my students just guess on this. Guessing's not going to do if you don't really know this language natively. You really need to figure it out. So let's do everything and figure it out the way we should, okay? Well, Schüler is going to be masculine, okay? And we know it's singular, not plural, because of this. This tells me it's just one student. So, we're going to go with this R here. So this is going to be der. Der Schüler gibt. So, the student gives the teacher a book. Well, we know that the book is what's being given. That's going to be accusative, so we'll get to that in a minute. The teacher's going to receive that book, so the teacher's going to be down here. So, let's get this one. The teacher's indirect object, it's a male because of Lehrer, it'd be Lehrerin if it was female. So, we're going to go down here, masculine, indirect object, we're going to need that M right there. So, get dem Lehrer. Buch, what gender is Buch? Buch is going to be neuter, okay? So, Buch is a neuter word, and Buch needs to be here at the direct object one. We're going to need this S right here, okay? So, we're going to go with das Buch, okay? So we have der Schüler gibt dem Lehrer das Buch, and all of those have to be just right. You can't mix those up. And there's only one right answer as far as all of these endings go. You have to get that right. So, how about another one? The girl gives this dog the food, okay? So, girl, we found out in the first lesson, because the CHEN is neuter, so, and that's obviously the subject, so we're going to go with this S, das Mädchen. Okay, great. Gives. Well, the food is what's being given, so that's going to be the direct object. We'll get there in a minute. So, who's receiving the food? That would be the dog, and that puts the dog at the indirect object. Hund is masculine. Indirect object is going to be this M over here, so we need diesem Hund. Then, Futter. Well, I just got through telling you that a lot of nouns that end with ER are masculine, and that's usually the case. I don't think it is here. I believe that is neuter, and I hope I'm right, which puts us direct object, neuter, which is das Futter, and I am right, it is das Futter. So das Mädchen gibt diesem Hund das Futter. Okay? Very good. How about this one? The female teacher, so the teacher, tells every student the story. Alright? Well, we know the teacher is the subject, and the IN makes it very easy that that's a female teacher. So, subject, feminine, boom, E right there, we got it. Die Lehrerin. Okay? Now, what's being told? What's being told is the story. So, the story is what's being verbed, the story is what's being told, that's the direct object. So, who's receiving the story? Every student is. Okay? So, student is going to be, it's going to be singular and masculine in this particular case. I want the singular in this one. So, singular, masculine. We know it's masculine, but it's receiving the story, so that makes that student the indirect object. We need that M right there. Jedem, Schüler, and Geschichte, story ends with an E. So what's your guess as the gender of that? Yep, that's going to be feminine, okay? And you are correct. And as we mentioned, that's what's being told. It's the direct object. We need this E right there, die Geschichte. So here we go. Die Lehrerin erzählt jedem Schüler die Geschichte. Very good. So, the basic idea is if you know the gender and if you know the function, those are the two tough parts. Once you know those two things, you can zero in on the ending very easily with this chart. So, you just need to know the gender and you need to know how it's functioning in the sentence. Piece of cake after that, really, okay? So, if you have written this Risi Nisi Mr. Man chart in your notes, I'm going to ask you to add one other little thing if this will show up on your screen. Next to this N, there's a small plus N on there, okay? So small plus N. Now, I'm going to tell you what that stands for. It's going to sound pretty complicated at first, but I'll give you some examples and hopefully that will straighten you out. This little N means that the noun itself, now all of these letters here deal with the articles right before the noun. This plus N means that not only do I have the N for the article, for the plural indirect or plural dative, okay, but also on the noun itself. If the noun doesn't already pluralize with an N, and if the noun doesn't pluralize with an S, I need to add an N to the actual noun. Now again, that probably was complicated, but let me show you what I mean. So, if you see a sentence like this, the mother gives the children the present, okay? So, I'm going to skip mother and present, I'm just going to concentrate on children right now. So the children are receiving the present, they're the indirect object, and they are plural, okay? So, the big N here that we normally have is this N right there, ding, ding. Now, Kinder is the plural of children, just Kinder. This extra N says that, whoops, in this case, I need to add yet another N to the noun itself. So this little N is this N right there. The big N is this N right here on the article. So the big N is the article the, or this, or every, or each, or whatever. Okay? And the small n goes on a noun like Kinder, so to make it Kindern. It's just a rule in German, you have to have that. Now, if this plural noun already pluralized in an n, then I wouldn't add an extra n. They've already got an n on it. Also, if the noun pluralizes with an s, as some do, then it would seem stupid to put an n after an s, so we don't do that. But in this case, it pluralizes with an ER, so I am going to need that N there. Alright? So, let's look at this one here. I'm again just going to look at the word Katze. Okay? The girl gives the cats this toy. Okay? So gives this toy to the cats. Cats plural. Okay? So, Katze is singular. Okay? And Katzen is already the plural. So we don't really need to add yet an extra N on that. In fact, I probably should not have made that red. It's already got the N on it when it's functioning as the indirect object. So I still have the big N is right there, ding. They're receiving the toy. So, ding, and the small n is just not needed because it's already pluralized with that n. So there we go. Okay, let's try a translation. This father gives each girl money. Alright, well, let's do the easy one. This father. Father's a noun, father's masculine. That makes it easy. Or father is the subject, excuse me. Father's masculine. We got an R. Dieser Vater. Then we have gibt. That's easy. Okay, what's being given? Money. So Geld is the direct object, and there doesn't appear to be an article in front of there, so we just have Geld. Now, who's receiving this? Each girl. So girl we know is neuter. They're receiving the money. They're receiving the direct object. So a girl is going to be the indirect object. We're going to need this M here. So jedem Mädchen Geld. Here we go. So dieser Vater gibt jedem Mädchen Geld. Okay? Alright. How about the boy explains the homework to the girl? Now when we do this sentence, it's going to be easier and perhaps a little more German-like to say the boy explains the girl the homework. That sounds a little better to a German, I suppose. So, we need the boy. Well, that's easy. Masculine subject, der. Okay, der Junge. That's the easy part. Explains is erklärt. Okay, and what's being explained? The homework. So that's going to be the direct object. We'll get to that in a minute. Who's receiving that homework explanation? That is the girl. So, singular girl. Girl is neuter. And girl is going to be the indirect object, receiving the homework in that sense of receiving the explanation of the homework. So, girl is the indirect object. We need the M right there. Dem Mädchen. Then again, back to the homework. We know Hausaufgabe ends with an E. So your guess is going to be feminine. Okay? And it's the direct object, die. Hausaufgabe. Okay? Very good. So, der Junge erklärt dem Mädchen die Hausaufgabe. So there's your sentence right there. Okay? Well, what if he was explaining to the girls? Then you go from dem Mädchen to den Mädchen. Mädchen's already pluralized with an N. I don't need yet an extra N on there. Okay? So here's that one. And if you were explaining to these girls, okay, I still need the N there. Diesen. There's the N there. Again, Mädchen already has the N plural, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay? And if he was explaining to every girl, singular, you would have, back to the singular neuter, jedem Mädchen. So you can play around with these endings on there, as long as you can play around with the words, but the endings will still follow the chart very specifically, okay? Now, part of this lesson is going to be very difficult. I should even break this up into a separate lesson, but I've kept this with this one here. The genitive. The genitive is just this case in German that doesn't really have a solid, regular English equivalent. So if you say, what is that in English? It's not exactly easy to pin that down. It's just not existing exactly in our language. But the idea is, the genitive is a person usually that possesses, or maybe an animal, that possesses something else. Okay? We often translate it as of the, even though it's just one word. It looks like the, but we would have to translate it of the. So here's what it looks like in a sentence, okay? Der Kuli der Frau ist blau. Alright? We would have to translate it, the pen. And this one word is like of the. It's a possessive the, if that makes any sense. Possessive the. So of the woman is blue. Now in normal English, we say the woman's pen is blue. That's very normal English. However, many of my students want to take that and say, die Frau's Kuli ist blau. And I'm afraid that's really bad German. Okay, you can't do that. You have to use this genitive form to say who's possessing that pen. Okay, so let's try a different one here. How would you just translate this one? Die Katze der Kinder ist gelb. Okay, Now, going word for word, it'd be like, the cat of the children is yellow. Or, again, in normal English, the children's cat is yellow. Alright? But that's how it works in German. It's going to look like this. And once again, you cannot say, die Kinderskatze. That's just not allowed in German. You can't do that. Okay? So, what is the subject of this sentence? Okay? The subject is Katze. Okay? I can almost eliminate this. The cat is yellow. That's really our base sentence. The cat is yellow. And I just want to know, whose cat is it? It's the possessive. Who's possessing this cat? And it's the children that's possessing the cat. So, the Katze is the subject. The children is genitive. Okay, that's how we call that, alright? So, if you will also add this to your chart, that after this S there's a plus S, and after this S there's a plus S. And you astute viewers may notice that that's going to mean the same thing as this plus N, that when we have a masculine noun that's possessive, we not only need the S, the big S for the article, but we need an extra S on the noun itself. And same with the neuter. Okay? I'll also tell you one other thing. This is going to get quite complicated, but when we add the S to the noun, if it's a singular noun, generally we add ES. And if it's a multi-syllable noun, then we just add an S. I'll give you samples. Okay? So, if I want to say the man's apple is here, okay? The man's apple, the apple of the man, is red, is red. So, der Apfel is the subject, so there's my arm, Apfel is masculine, and it's the subject. The man is possessing it. So, this first S is this S right there. It's actually des, not das. Des. Des. Then I've got another S, and I need to put it right there. Des Mannes. Okay? Der Apfel des Mannes. Now, again, there's an ES here because man is a single syllable. It's a one syllable word, so I'm going to add ES. I will be showing you samples with multi-syllable words that just adds an S. Alright. Now, if it's the woman's apple, the apple of the woman, now the of the woman is going to be feminine, possessive, genitive here. So I need the der, and then there's no plus anything, so Frau just stays Frau. Leave the noun as is. The child's apple is here, the apple of the child. So I had the first S, another des for the article, and this S is added to the word kind, des Kindes. So der Apfel des Kindes ist rot. Okay? And finally, the apple of the children is red. That's going to be plural, and that's going to be this R right here. And Kinder is Kinder. I don't add an N or anything like I did in this case. Okay, so Kinder stays Kinder. Let's try a couple then. Remember, you really want to identify the gender and then the function of these words so you get the idea. Okay, we want to say the stool or the chair of the student is broken. So the student's chair is broken, but the chair of the student. So chair is the subject. And what is your guess on the gender of chair? Can't be plural, so you got three guesses. Chair happens to be masculine, okay? So now that you know that, and it's the subject, we know we have to have this R. Okay, so der Stuhl. Now, this is obviously a female student, so that puts us in feminine. She's possessing the chair, it's her chair. Okay, so that puts her right there. All we need is another der. We actually have two ders. So, der Stuhl, der Schülerin. But those are two ders in two different cases. So it works differently. Okay, der Stuhl, der Schülerin is kaputt. The chair of the student is broken, or the student's chair is broken. Okay, every book of the teacher is new. So, every book of the teacher. Alright? Book is the subject. What gender is book? I think you remember that that's neuter. Okay? So, that's the subject. We need this S. Jedes. Jedes Buch. Okay, now, we have a teacher that's possessing that book, or every book. So teacher, in this case it's a male teacher. It'd be Lehrerin if it was female. So we know it's masculine. He's possessing the book. There's an S and then there's the other S. So the first S goes here, des, D-E-S, des. And then here's a multi-syllable word, so we only need an S there. That's Lehrers, not an ES. Okay, just an S. So, jedes Buch des Lehrers. See, once again, just an S. If that was a single syllable, then it would be ES. But multi-syllable, just an S. Okay, that's this S right there. That's added to the noun. Okay? Let's try a translation. The teacher's board is white. Okay? Remember, you have to change it to the board of the teacher is white. Okay? Then we'll solve for that. So the board of the teacher. Well, board, okay, you might remember from an earlier lesson is tafel, and you might remember that that's actually feminine. Okay? So feminine, it's the subject. We've got this E right here. So, die Tafel of the teacher. Well, let's assume it's a male teacher, okay? If it's a male teacher that's possessing it, we're going to need this S and then the other S. So, des Lehrers ist weiß. Now, if it's a female teacher, it would be die Tafel der Lehrerin. And you don't touch Lehrerin. Very good. So, die Tafel des Lehrers ist weiß. Or if it's a female teacher, die Tafel der Lehrerin ist weiß. Hopefully that's starting to make a little sense. Again, it's different from English. Don't expect it to line up exactly with English. Okay, it's a different language. So, one last one. The dog's toy is dirty. Remember, we have to switch that around. We need to have the toy of the dog. The toy of the dog. So, Spielzeug. Don't suppose you remember what gender Spielzeug is. Masculine, feminine, neuter, plural. Your guess, hopefully, is neuter. It is neuter, actually. And it's the subject, so das. Das Spielzeug. Of the dog. Well, dog is masculine. We need it down there. Okay? So, des, we need the other S. And Hund is one syllable, so we actually need an ES. Des Hundes ist schmutzig. Okay? So, das Spielzeug des Hundes ist schmutzig. Hopefully that's starting to make a little sense. The entire chart I like to read off as Risi, Nisi, Mr. Man, Sir, Sir. For me, that's really easy to have in my head. Risi, Nisi, Mr. Man, Sir, Sir. And if I'm taking a test or writing something and I just need to think, okay, what ending goes here? Going through this in my head, Risi, Nisi, Mr. Man, Sir, Sir, really helps me anyway to get this down. It's just my little hint for myself. Then, today's tip, if you'd like to write this one down, usually, there's rare exceptions, but any noun referring to an actual male person is going to be masculine, and any noun referring to a female person is feminine. So like Lehrer, Lehrerin, okay, so that's going to make it easy for you. So, a few more lessons to go. I hope you're still sticking with me. I'm going to try to make this easier as we go along and give you a few more tips along the way.